Can you walk us through a little bit of the process of that book and the research? I mean, where did you begin with the Negro Leagues or Major Leagues, or did you take some of the work that was already done and go with that? I mean, how did you what did you do in order to get that process started?
Well, I just once I decided on the topic, we talked about it, and I started assembling some historians to write about it, and we gave them the topic, and I asked some people, and some people could, and some people couldn't do it, but most people are pretty receptive about writing it. And I decided I'd handle more of the statistical piece, and so I came up with some reasons why I thought uh, the Negro Leagues, or I knew, but
Mm-hmm.
they were, and I thought, well, let's compare it head to head. I thought we need to get that pointed out, so we wrote about that. Let's look at how they did in their own leagues, and Ted Knorr, a great researcher, um, kind of got me thinking about that. So we looked at pitching statistics in both leagues, compared them, and then we started comparing those against AAA, in fact, and looking at those. And the premise is that a stronger league, is usually going to have lower lower batting averages, and OBP and on base is going to be lower in a stronger league. Um, Not always, but usually. And so I started comparing those against MLB and found out that hey, their averages are consistently lower, and they're consistently lower, a lot lower than AAA, and AAA is higher than MLB. So that started, another thing we looked at. I looked at player populations, the thing we were just talking about, how many people would actually play in both leagues. Um, so all these things I started just sort of researching. One thing sort of led to another, and I just sort of put that statistical database together, and because I knew we needed to have numbers. And then people wrote about what they wanted to. Rich Perzer wrote about a single season. Stats. Larry Lester wrote about how stats were put together. Phil Lowry, wrote about how the initial selection of the Hall of Fame worked. Um, Scott Simkus wrote about the Homestead Grays against minor leaguers and major leaguers. So, Michael Hopper wrote about financial things. So we just had a great researchers writing about things that they wanted to, that were related to the topic.
Mm-hmm. And that's really all you can do at this point. I mean, it's all research. It's the best ability to paint a picture here.
Yeah.
I don't think, I mean, nobody's got an agenda here. I mean, there's no. I mean, this is a baseball history and an American history
Yeah.
project that many of you have been doing for such a long time, and
Yeah.
it's just trying to show things on an equal footing. And I don't. I mean, when I hear things like woke left and all this other kind of stuff, I mean, people are missing the fact that these efforts have been going on for a long time to raise awareness,
Yeah.
and this research has been going on a long time.
It's
Um,
yeah. Since I think in earnest since the mid '60s, early '70s, people have been working very hard on this, and
mhm.
it's been a few generations of researchers now. And
And
since the internet blew up, and
there you go.
access of online newspapers and things, it's made it easier, incredibly easier. You used to have to go, when I started out, go to historical society and hand hand crank these very large microfilm machines, and
Hmm.
bring a lot of quarters for you to print out. That's back then they didn't even have the zip drive, so you just had to print your microfilm copies out. And
Hmm.
now it has gotten easier, but it's been going on for a long time. And the sad thing is, people have written about this, how many newspapers we've lost.
Hmm.
They just America.
Oh
Thankfully,
boy.
some people hang on, but so many great newspapers and so many beautiful newspapers were just pulp thrown away. So
Yes.
we've lost some things we'll never get. I mean, who knows what great newspapers, what great newspaper coverage there was. that we've just lost, maybe
Hmm.
forever. So
You know, that's just the tip of it, right?
yeah,
Leslie Hafey the other day when I had her on pointed that out about a newspaper that she was talking to someone and they had talked a week earlier, but they had just thrown away everything into the
yeah,
dumpster that were files and everything else that go back to like the decades of this time period we're talking about here,
yeah,
gone, never to be. I mean, this is not today, and that's the thing that I think people are missing here. The stats you see today, the standings, the schedule, the way they travel, that's today. And maybe it was 20 years ago similar, 30 years ago similar. But you start going back further into time, none of this was the way it is today. So you got to take yourself out of a modern setting and go back to where we were. So you've got the difficulties, like you said, of research, right? Everything was on paper, and you had to physically find that piece of paper that in order to find it. Now everything is digital and you can find it and you
yeah.
can do it from your home. No, many of this stuff, that's just not going to happen. You've got to physically go to that building. And so how do you build that network? I mean, Pete Gorton with the Donaldson, I mean, he has
Yeah.
how many people that are digging that type of information in their local libraries in a lot of cases, their local, places, towns, and so forth, and that's helpful. I mean,
No, it's incredibly helpful. I mean, there's a lot of places you can't get to. You can't get to everywhere.
hmm
So I know there's a lot of games out there. Hopefully we'll find someday. But
wait,
that's a great thing. I mean, it becomes, if this becomes more mainstream and it's getting there, then and the younger researchers are going to go find this hopefully, and they'll be
hopefully,
motivated to do so. Because like I said, it's half there's half history. So
or sadly,
you got,
maybe not, right? I mean,
well,
you know,
I think there's a lot. There's still a lot out there, and there's so much to do, to be done and to be found. And so I think it's it's the hopefully the next generation of researchers.
I have been encouraging people to look around them because
Yeah,
that's an underappreciated aspect of not just, I mean, the Negro Leagues, baseball in general, but the Negro Leagues especially with the barnstorming, how it helped to spread that brand to every little corner of the country, the continent,
yeah.
and it doesn't get the credit that it probably deserves in that.
Well, I think it's a subtle thing too. I mean, I think if you have these teams, I mean, you have white supremacy, you have racism, but you have a black team coming in and beating a town team pretty badly. And I think subtly, you know, maybe too subtle, maybe too underneath the consciousness, you're going, you know, why are we treating these people like second class citizens? What's going on here?
Mm-hmm.
I think there's sort of an underlying total. I think that's the eventual victory that made of the Negro Leagues. It did. It was we've subjugated these people. We've taken away as much as we can from them, but they still persevere, and
Mm-hmm.
they achieve tremendous things, and they're all over. They're playing everywhere. All over the United States.
Mm-hmm.
These guys are playing, and the Americas as well. They're everywhere they can. They're playing, and they're spreading. Not only they're spreading baseball, but I think they're spreading equality at the same time that they're playing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't even go that far. That was a great point you made earlier about the fact that Latin baseball, a lot of what was going on, and there were major league teams that were playing down there as well in
Yeah,
Cuba and other places. But when you dig into it, the Negro Leagues had a great impact on the game when it was played in places like Puerto Rico and Venezuela and Dominican Republic. They were there all the time playing. I mean, the stories that you read about the Dominican Republic, especially, which is a baseball hotbed today,
yeah,
goes back to directly to you know a lot of the impact the Negro Leagues had on spreading the game there. Mexico as well, the
yeah,
same thing. I mean, and there's no wonder why these guys went down there to play. They could go there and just play baseball, and be
In
treated
baseball,
like
they were treated like men, like Willie Wells said. They were
yeah.
treated like
No,
like
there's no
actual people.
yeah, there's no surprise why they did it. Now
Yeah,
the thing you pointed out too, and I'm hoping this isn't the case, but like for example, 1942, I found the one. It was a radio, well, a mention in a Baltimore newspaper of a radio broadcast between the Homestead Grays and I think it was the Baltimore Black Sox that were playing. That was going to be radio broadcast in 1942, a radio
yeah,
broadcast, right? And someone asked, I think it was Scott actually asked, boy, it'd be great to actually, if you had those files, the audio files or the tapes to be able to hear that. How cool would that be, right?
yeah,
But they're not. They're gone. That radio station was, is gone. It's no more. It's evolved into something else over the time. But the chances of finding that audio tape, oh boy, unless unless there's something laying around somewhere that nobody knows about, it's going to be difficult to
yeah,
find some of these things. And so that's disappointing in a way that at some point some of this history is just never going to be able to be reproduced because like you pointed out these newspapers and some were forced out of business,
yeah,
some literally were burnt to the ground. you know as crazy as that is, some of that the accounts of these things maybe we'll never get them all,
yeah.
but
Well,
doesn't mean you shouldn't keep looking.
I'll keep looking and keep hopeful.
Hmm.
So it's what you can do. Just always hope. Dreaming and hoping that you'll find these things.
Yep. So
So
just to sum all this up, like I said, I want people to understand the forest and the trees here, and the forest is baseball, and the tree, you know, don't. The Negro Leagues are one of many major leagues now. Whether people like that
yeah,
fact or not, they're going to be included. Um, so don't lose sight of the fact that these same difficulties and these same perceptions and these same not playing each other like the AL and NL for many decades, um, they were always in place. So to say that the Negro Leagues are not major leagues, it's just on the surface, and even as you dig deeper, it doesn't make any sense.
it makes no sense. It just I think instinctively for people it just doesn't make any sense that you wouldn't include them.
And my anecdotal thing is, I don't even know if this but it's like archaeology here, right? You're digging, you're trying to find the bones of the dinosaur. So you found some big bones, right? and you
Yeah,
dug them up, and it doesn't mean that that dinosaur wasn't big. Obviously, you've got all of the pieces. You just need to
yeah,
put them all together, and it's kind of the same way it is with the Negro Leagues. You have all the pieces. It's
yeah,
it's trying to put them together, and some at some point the people aren't going to accept the pieces no matter how they're put together.
yeah,
But no one's making anything up here. These are documented. There are box
yeah.
scores. There
It's
are accounts.
yeah,
Um,
it's not being woke. It's just being right.
and
So I mean, yeah, I think they talk about revisionist history. Well, history is always being revised. I mean,
mm,
that's the whole thing. History
mhm.
is
and
history is revisionist. It's history.
And one
So
thing to
it's
point out here is no one is using statistics where they played against the church team or against,
no,
no, this is documented Negro League, whether they be Negro National League, Negro Southern
yeah,
League, the seven leagues
yeah,
included. That's all that's included.
yeah, yeah. It's just there's and that's just a portion of their schedule that they played. I mean, they
Hmm.
because they kind of had to make money. They had to play against town teams, and they had to
Hmm.
play against semi-pros. So yeah, they'd love to have played a 162 game schedule. They
Hmm.
would have. They'd love to play
Sure.
They'd love to play the American League and National League. So
Ooh.
it's just like you just can't just say, well, we're not going to count those because it just um, you can't use
So,
restrictive policies to restrict their statistics as well.
hmm so as part of the whole dinosaur bone analogy here, right? So you've got these accounts. You've got a entire decade of the 50s where these players began to come out of the Negro Leagues into Major League Baseball,
Yeah,
and they won award after award, MVP award, Rookie of the
and
Year
and
award.
they and they pitch better than league average. They hit better than league average.
And now,
You know,
yes, that was the ones that were allowed to that
because
were signed at that point.
because you had quotas. I mean, that's another
There
thing we
were,
don't talk about.
yes, that was where I was
Well,
going with it. Yes.
and I just read somewhere that they think that the reason for the Lou Brock trade was a quota system. The Cubs had too many black players, so they
So,
had to.
so
They,
like, I love when
so
people.
I really no sympathy for the Cubs curse. So it's like
Hmm.
if you're doing things like that, and I think there's a lot of validation
Hmm.
to that story. I mean, that's the reason we got
Boy,
we got too many black players, so we're gonna ship this guy to St. Louis.
there you go. Right there. Okay,
So
think. People, I just hope they wrap their heads around this. So until
yeah,
1947, they weren't allowed to play because of the color of their skin.
yeah,
Now they come in and they're still limited. There's still some teams until 1960 that don't sign
yeah,
any
because
black
they're
players.
yeah, because it's either racism or they're a threat. They're gonna take away jobs. So we're gonna make
Yes.
sure you only play only four guys at a time can play in the field at one time.
Hmm.
We're not going to go to five. We're not going to
So
go. It's just this, you know, the racism is so integrated in MLB. And I hate to say it, but it still is to this day in a
yes,
lot of sports. I mean, that's,
it is what it
if
is.
you're a 50-year-old white guy saying this, so, but anyway, it's the truth. I mean, and the elimination of the black pitcher, the elimination of the black catcher. Why did that happen?
Yes, it's like the whole
Why
with the black quarterback
the black
conversations
quarterback?
that
It's
goes
just
on.
like when
Yes.
I grew up. When I grew up, it was James Harris and Jim Gilliam. That or not Jim Gilliam. I mean, those were the guys. It was like not a handful. It was like two black quarterbacks.
Hmm.
That was it in
And
the mid-70s. It's that
and people will look at the 1950s into the 60s and say, well, they started to come in, but there really wasn't all that many of them. Yes, because the pipeline, the spigot was
it
still
was it was clogged.
clogged. Yes, exactly,
It
exactly.
was
So, yes, that's a great point. So anyway, like I said, I really hope people can wrap their heads around all of this because it's complex, no doubt. And there's a lot of different things, a lot of moving pieces, a lot of things going on here. But at some point, the Negro Leagues are major leagues. It's
yeah.
official now.
Well, most people, yeah, it's like, yeah, right. Of course it is. But for some people, I think it's going to take a while. But it's
Hmm.
there, and
Hmm.
it's
And unfortunately,
there's no going back.
the fallback position is going to be statistics.
Yeah. Well,
Um, and like I said, at this point, if it's not good enough now, no statistic is ever going to change that for some people. And we know the reason why that would be, uh, you know, but that is a fact. I mean, I literally could, probably give them every statistic in the world. It's still not going to change the fact. It's the last fallback position to not wanting to just say, yeah, you know what, these guys were pretty good, and many of them could have and should have played in Major League Baseball, and were not given the opportunity. So
you know,
anyway,
well, the numbers are out there.
hmm.
I
Yes.
got, they're there. We can show them to you, and
So
we
what?
can
So what are
anyways.
you working on now? What do you got going on yourself?
Just a book about a long project about just Negro Leagues and black ball playoffs. So from just who the champions were, and sort of going back because they had a more complex system of determining the champion, but they had one. The leagues did. So just sort of straightening it out and figuring it out and
What What are you going to
gathering
call it?
information. So it's
What are you going to call
pardon.
it? What are you going to call it?
Well, working title just championship games of the Negro Leagues.
Okay.
It's the working title, but we'll see what.
When you hoping to get
Sort
that
of,
done, or is that
I
who knows?
it's been a while. It's going to be a while. But hopefully we're working on it. I'm getting near the end of the statistical accumulation, but it's just like a lot of rabbit holes and
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of teams playing, a lot of good teams playing each other, and so it's a lot to track down. But
Hmm.
I will nail it down at some point.
All right, man. I really appreciate you taking the time. And like I said, I know everybody's busy, but I just think it's important to get you guys who've been at this for a long time, get the perspective, put the context to it, and hopefully that helps people to wrap their heads around all of this because it's not an easy story. In many ways, on every level, this is not an easy story. But like you pointed out, it's a great story of adaptation, uh, overcoming,
Yeah,
perseverance. That's a great American story.
it's a great American story, and it's a lot of sadness, but ultimately triumph. So it's
Hmm.
you know,
Yep.
so I hate to trivialize it, but
Hmm.
it is a great story. And half of baseball, it's been restored, so
Hmm.
that's I think that's gonna be terrific for everybody.
It is. I think it's a big piece that was missing for a long time, and I hope people start in their own way to learn more and find out more. So, like I said, I really appreciate it. This was great. Thank you again, sir.
So
And we
thank you,
will
Philip.
we'll stay in touch. I'm sure. I'm
Yeah,
trying to, like I said, get as many more. I've got people coming on lined up all the way through most of the summer. So, should be
oh,
fun. Yeah, yeah.
that's
So,
great.
yeah. So it's good. And like I said, it's I think important to get everybody's perspective and acknowledge and appreciate the work that all you guys have done for all these years because it's sure wasn't easy.
Well, it's not even work.
Right
So
when you enjoy doing it, that's right.
you love it. It's not work. So it's
Yep. All right, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. You have a great day.
hey, thank you so much, Philip.
All right. Bye bye.
Goodbye.